Okay, welcome back if you're joining me for our third video on axiology. So this is, I believe, the final video. We don't have much to go in this series, so I want to reiterate the three things we originally started out with, axiology 1, 2, 3, just to give you a refresher. So I'm going to do the screen share. Number one, so this is the example of 1, 2, 3. So number one, we have one mind where all our psychic energy comes from. This is our energy source for providing us the available energy. Oh man, Jair, good to see you, buddy. I don't know why that's so great when you do that. I love that. So our psychic energy comes from our emotional center, which is the four primary emotions: anger, optimism, patience, and fear. We select from these emotions almost like selecting out of a database in an effort to provide ourselves with this necessary energies for doing whatever it is we do. Now, there's certain energies we rely on, there's certain energies we don't rely on, which means we are relying on the opposite of those energies. And so for patience, in other words, if you're relying on patience as an energy, then you have a more hesitant mindset. If you're relying on the opposite of patience, which means you're not relying on patience, then you're relying on impulse. And so this happens with all four primary emotions, which sort of gives you 8, if you want to think of it in that way. Number two, two worlds. We have an outer world and we have an inner world. The outer world is the things around us, and the inner world are the things within us. And each world has the same 3 dimensions. So these are the scientific terms: intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic. So the intrinsic dimension is feelings, or it allows us to relate to other people because we're feeling into people. We can feel things. I talked about in video number 1, I talked about a chair or an Afghan that my great-grandmother made, and how I can feel her through the Afghan, because the intrinsic world, there's no time attached to it. So it's a timeless realm, this dimension. The extrinsic is doing. So this piece is all about knowing what to do and when to do it. That doesn't happen with everybody. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that some people hit the ground running. Some people have to find their feet. And then systemic thinking, which is the thinking realm or structured thinking. And those are the 3 dimensions: relating, doing, and thinking. 2 worlds: the inner world, the outer world, and one mind. So we're going to skip down to where we left off the last time. And we're all the way down to the doing in the inner dimension. So rather than knowing what to do and when to do it, this is about what we do. So knowing what you do and how you do it. And that's what we're really looking at in this section. So inner dimension, number 2, the doer. How clearly do I understand what I do well? So this dimension is really about maximizing your potential for doing what it is you do. And so I know what I do, and I know what I do well. I also know what I don't do well. And this is something I want to point out. Knowing what we do is great. Knowing what we don't do is even greater. And the reason being is because oftentimes people are doing things they shouldn't be doing simply because they're not good at it. And so that's not a negative. There's certain things I have no business doing because I'm not good at it. I have no business doing math, for instance. Okay? So I don't. So when we're building our reports and our tools here for measuring, I have a mathematician in California that's a partner of mine who takes all of my intuitive insights and all of these things that we come up with, and he's a statistical analyst, he's a mathematician, he does the math. I don't do the math. I stay away from it. And he stays away from, what I do. So it's important to know what you do. It's more important to know what you don't do. So how do we maximize our potential? What kind of clarity do we have around our understanding of what we do well? Now, if you look at our graph here, if you have crystal clear clarity, that means your aperture is open, it's big. Okay, so you get this big open aperture in your camera, your mind camera, it lets a lot of light in, and so you have an overly exposed, hey! It's my buddy Seth from Massachusetts. Hey man, how you doing? An inside joke. Oh God, you caught me off guard with that one. And so, is our clarity crystal clear? Is it clear? Is it unconventional? Visible? Transition? So, what kind of clarity do we have? Some people, when it comes to knowing what they do well, like I said before, I'll use this as an illustration again. They're looking like this through a smaller aperture. And because of that, they become more creative because their brain is more selective. So they're really honing in on pieces and parts of a whole, not a whole. Think about photograph or a comic strip. This is a better illustration. A comic strip. You blow that comic strip up really big and you could see that the printing is made of little circles, little dots, different colored dots. And some people, they're looking at the dots and they're not looking at the entire picture. So think about zooming out far away, and you see this whole picture. Zooming in to a very small section, you're seeing part of the picture, and you can see that well, and you're likely seeing things I'm not seeing if you're maximizing your sight down to a smaller piece. But what that means is you become more limited in the dimension of what you're actually able to see. So when, this is happening within the realm of empathy, then, we're aware and can see certain kinds of people, and we're open to certain kinds of people, typically people that think like we do, but we're not open to every kind of people, okay? So it changes these different things. So how clearly do I understand what I do well? Do I understand what I do really well? Do I know what my sweet spot is? And do I spend my available time doing what I do best? All right? Are you a rock star? And that's the question. So I want you to think about this. Think of a rock star. So here's a good example. So Adam Lambert in Queen opened for the event at Hollywood recently, whatever it was. It wasn't the Grammys. It was whatever the heck that is. Anyway, I watched some of it as far as his performance. I really like Adam Lambert. He's got an incredible singing gift. So Adam Lambert knows what Adam Lambert does really well. So does Adam Lambert sell tickets to his events? No. Ticketmasters does that for him. It's outsourced, right? Does Adam Lambert set up the stage? No. Adam Lambert waits for everyone else to set it up, and then he comes out and does what he does. He sings. So he knows what he does really well, and he spends his available time honing in on what he does really well so he can do it super well. All right? Now, this goes for everybody. What do I do really well? Well, working with people, right? You know, I know the kind of people I work well with. I know exactly what I want to do with people. So let's say my clarity on what I do really well is diminished. Let's say I have a visible level of clarity, second to last on a scale of 5 opportunities of sight. Crystal clear being the greatest, clear, unconventional, and then visible. So this visible piece, what if I have visible clarity? I might say something like this. Somebody say, so what do you want to do with your life? I might say, well, I want to help people. Okay, that's very generalized, right? Well, what kind of people? Help them with what? And what are you bringing to the table? Like what is it that you do really well? And some people, they don't know. Now, other people, they say, well, I want to go to college because I want to be a physical therapist. So I'm signing up for physical therapy school, and that's what I'm going to do. Or I want to be a welder. So I'm going to welding school. Or I want to be a veterinarian. So I'm going to veterinarian school or nursing school. Or an artist and a potter. I'm really good with working with clay. I'm a ceramics specialist. I'm a sculptor. And I don't sculpt with wood, I sculpt with metal. And I'm really good at it. And so whatever you're good at, you know, I paint. Well, with what? Well, I paint with watercolors, let's say. And I'm really good painting with watercolors. Well, do you use pencil? No. Do you use charcoal? No. Do you use acrylics? No. I do watercolor and I'm excellent at it. So I'm able to see all this big area of all these opportunities of what I can do, and yet I have crystal clear clarity on what it is I do really well. And now I'm spending most, if not all, of my available time honing in on this one thing that I do really well. That's what makes you a rock star. Now, not everybody finds their feet so swiftly when it comes to what they do. Now, I used to do all kinds of things. I've painted houses. I've built manufactured housing on an assembly line. I worked at Burger King in high school. I worked at the Westin Sizzlin Steakhouse in Florida for a month or two. What have I done? I did all these things, but those were general things that I did just in an effort to get some money. But I didn't have the best clarity on what I did. But the older I get, the clearer my mind became about what I do and what I do well. By the time I was 40, I really knew well what I wanted to do. And that's what I'm doing now. And it's funny because when I'm doing my sweet spot, it's effortless and work comes to me. Okay, good question. What if someone has crystal clear clarity, but a negative bias? So they know what they're doing really well, but they're in what's known as social role transition. They feel negative about what they're doing. In other words, they're feeling like, I know what I do really well, but this ain't it. I know what I really do well, but in my current position, I don't feel like my strengths are being utilized. Or I know this is what I do, but I don't feel like I'm being paid well for it. Or something like that. So when you have really clear clarity, you're clear on what you do, but you have negative feelings in the space of doing it, which means typically you may be in the right place and not doing the right parts of what you should be doing. And so we get scores like that when people are feeling underutilized. They're feeling that they're not reaching their fullest potential within the dimension of role awareness wherever that's playing out. Because typically our role awareness plays out when we're given a role. Typically most people work for an organization. Let's say you're really good at leading people and you really care about people. This is to answer your question, Jair. And you're really good at deciphering and understanding what people are going through. And you want to use that in your work. And let's say you get hired in an organization, and you're in a leadership role, and you're taking extra time with people in an effort to help them become better people. And let's say you clearly see what's wrong, you clearly see what they're feeling, and you're trying to speak to those feelings because you're really good at working with people, getting them to buy into what you're doing, getting them on board and so forth. But the top manager comes down and says, you're spending too much time with the people. I don't want you spending this kind of time with the people. It's really wasting time. We're going to get this project moving. You're slowing down. And I didn't hire you to be a counselor. I hired you to get these people, this kind of a thing. What would start happening? Even though you clearly know what you do well within your current position, you're going to start having feelings of angst, caution, negative feelings about your situation because you're just not you're not able to reach your full potential that you know and understand that you have in that role because something or someone's holding you back. That would create negative feelings with crystal clear clarity. Okay. So, am I a rock star or am I a kick-ass guitar player, but organizing my schedule, selling my own tickets, and setting up my own stage? Like, you're not going to be happy because you're doing all these other things that are not your sweet spot. Okay? And this can mean, let's say you've got crystal clear clarity and you're having to sell your own tickets and you're having to set up your own stage and you're having to organize your own schedule and get gigs and all that because you're brand new starting out and you don't have an agent, right? So you're going to go through a lot of negative feelings associated with all these things that you don't do well but have to do in an effort to get going. So you're going to be in a constant state of social role transition until you get to that place where you can do just what you do really well. Now there are some people, they've got less clarity, so they don't know what they do, so they do whatever they can, and they've got a very strong positive bias. Okay, so they got a big aperture, they're paying a lot of attention to what they're doing, but they're not good at it and they don't know it. So you see this on American Idol. I'm a singer, right? I'm a great singer. And they get on there. Well, the show doesn't do it like they used to do it, but when the show first came out, they were doing tryouts in all these different cities, and you go in this little room and you get on a little stage and you sing to no music, just to the panel. And some of them, it was horrific. The singing was terrible. And the whole time, they got their eyes closed. They're really getting into it. And they're like, somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue. Like this. And everyone on the panel's like, are you hearing what I'm hearing? And then when they get done, maybe Simon just says, that was the worst thing I've ever heard. And the people get all bent out of shape. They get hurt. At the end, they're leaving, they're marching out of the building, going like this, to the cameras, like, "Your loss, I'll go find someone who knows what I can do and recognizes my talent." This kind of thing. What is that? That's like transition clarity. Double positive bias. I'm awesome. No one knows it, including me. No one knows how bad I am, or I don't know how bad I am, and I think everybody else is missing the boat. Like, this happens. We see it happen. So you got to be careful. If your clarity levels are lower, it's good to check in with other people. What do you see me as doing really well? If you don't know yourself, why don't you ask? Find out from the people that know you and care about you. They'll tell you if you're good at it. You may not like hearing that, but it'll make you successful if you listen, and less frustrating and all that. So, a lot plays into this. Self-esteem, oh my God, you got so many variables coming in here. It's good to know, where all of these things are, because it'll help you really understand. Am I only doing what I do best, or am I focused on non-essentials, to what I should be doing? So, what am I focused on? Are you focused on what you do best? Are you focusing on non-essentials because you don't know what you do best? You can be going strong and hard in the wrong direction. You can be putting a lot of time and energy into the wrong job and not know it. Okay? Am I maximizing my potential? Am I spending all my available time in what we call the zone? And some of you know when you're in the zone, when things are flowing, things happen naturally, you don't have to think about it. This is what I used to say years ago. I used to say this: do what you are and you'll never work again. A lot of people don't know what they are. They don't know what they do. And so, it's good to explore these things and find out. Or you're good at something and you don't like it. That's another thing. Some people can play the piano like a concert pianist, but they don't like doing piano concerts. Okay, you don't have to do it simply because you're good at it. That's not a good thing to do either. A lot of times people say, "Oh my God, if I had your talent, I'd be doing this." Oh, really? Right? So there's other things I can do. We're all multifaceted. We all have multiple assets. And we tend to pick one that we feel like is our best asset. And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But when you're right, trust me, there's plenty of people lined up to tell you should be working on the other asset. They're everywhere. And don't listen to them. So you got to be faithful to yourself. Okay. So a good question to ask yourself: am I doing what I value? Do you know, I believe the statistic is 84% of working people are basically waiting for their dream job. They're hoping something else comes along. And so that's pretty high. Not everybody is doing what they love. And I want to encourage you to think about some of these things. This is called role frustration. So when you're experiencing role frustration, you're experiencing negative feelings. You've got negative attention towards what you're doing, which is basically, I'm frustrated, I'm unfulfilled. You may be looking to the past, like, remember yesteryear when I used to do this? That was fun. Now it ain't so much fun. Or you're looking to the future for satisfaction. Well, this job's just a stepping stone until I can go do this, what I think I'll really be good at. And so some people are just tolerating their current circumstances. Now, some people are in a intermediate position. I've been in plenty of those. You're working in an organization and you're trying to work your way up, so you come in, we call it coming in at the ground floor. And so you have to work through that ground floor. You have to put your time in, down here until you get acclimated. And then once you're showing signs of growth and trust and all these different things, you can start moving up. It's good to put your time in and build slowly over time. A lot of people, they hop around. I call them floaters. They jump around to this, that. They never root down and get really good at something. They're always moving along because they don't have any patience. And so it's real important that you understand these things. Some people, they're thinking to themselves, wow, I'm not looking forward to what I'm going to do today. On your way to work, are you looking forward to what you're going to do? Years ago, when I tried to do college, I was a roofer. So I put shingles on roofs. And, I was good at it. I was fast. I could put down, one time, I think my record was 19 and a half squares in 5 hours. Okay? Crawling around a roof like a monkey. With a Mustang 2 pass load nail gun, staple gun. And that was like, I felt like a cyborg when I had a Mustang in my hands. I could throw I could carry the bundles up on my back then, right up the ladder, sling it down. The way I threw it on the roof would cause it to open the bundle. Cause the shingles were sharp, so inside they would kind of go and they would kind of cut the paper. And I'd rip it off, I'd grab one hand, left hand, grab the shingle, flip it over in midair, throw it down. It would fall, slide down the roof, right up against the gun. I mean, I had this whole routine. It was like one fell swoop. Da-da-da-da-da. 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 And I just had a rhythm, and I just worked my way right up the roof. And so I can remember the first time I asked the contractor that I was roofing for, because I was being paid by the hour. I said, would you mind paying me by the square? And he said, well, how much do you want a square? And back then, a long time ago, I said $6. And so that's like, I can't remember. It's 3 or 4 bundles now. It's been so long ago. But and he's like, yeah, that's fine. So great. So I went from making like $7 to $25 an hour. And I wouldn't take lunch. I would go dusk to dawn. Of course I weighed like 160 pounds then. I was just like a cat on a hot tin roof. But I was really good at that. But I remember when I started not liking it. And so I was not looking forward to what I was going to do that day. And I can remember as clear as if it was yesterday. I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to go down and tell him, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't even know what I was going to do in its place. And I gave 2 weeks notice that day. That gave me 2 weeks to figure it out. And I've found over the years, this is what I do to myself. I put myself in these places of no plan B, and it really brings my capacity to get things happening right to the surface. But if I don't have that, I may not do anything. So I put myself in that position and ended up changing careers within those 2 weeks. And so anyway, it wasn't that I couldn't do it. I didn't like it anymore. And I knew there was more, I had more potential. I knew I could do more than just this. Why? I had great clarity. I knew I had capacity for more than this, and I wasn't lying to myself. I knew it. And it was true. I did. All right. So my energy is pointed at things I'm not currently being paid to do. Okay. So, hey, hon. Hey, I'm on Facebook Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. I'll catch you when you get home. Okay. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. So my energy is pointed at things I'm not currently being paid to do. That'll create role frustration. You're doing one thing, you're getting paid for it, but you got your eyes on something else, and you're not being paid for it, and you're not doing it, and you want to. That's another form of role frustration. So remember, soul frustration. I'm not happy with who I am. Role frustration. I'm not doing what I value. Okay? This is a good example of role frustration. I love this little picture. I won't say it. You'll have to watch the video to get that. So we all understand what that means. All right, let's look at outer dimension number 3, self-direction. So remember, relating, doing, thinking. So this is also a thinking dimension. But it's, that says outer dimension. It should say inner dimension at the top there. So you'll have to make a note of that. All right. How clearly do I understand my goals, my vision, and my future direction? This is really about your internal compass. Okay. It's about your internal compass. We all have goals. We all have some vision. And we all have a future that we're looking to or wanting to reach, a goal, so forth and so on. All right. How clearly do you understand your goals and your vision for your future? I knew when I was 14 years old, I wanted to speak to crowds. At 14 years of age, I knew this. I've always known that. There have been things that I've known my whole life that didn't start happening till I was much older. But I had a very clear vision of my future. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew, what I wanted to do. So this dimension is really about future direction. So, the systemic piece, intrinsic, extrinsic, systemic. So intrinsic is infinity. There's no time. Extrinsic is now. And then systemic is future. All right? And in both outer and inner worlds, it is the same. Do I know where I'm going? Do I know why I'm going there? Do I have a functional inner compass and understand my true north? Am I self-directed? That's the question. Are you self-directed? Or are you dependent upon somebody else to direct you? Right? So self-direction is about being self-directed. What happens with people that tend to have a lower sense of self-worth? What they'll do is they'll have a very open aperture in their self-direction. So what does that mean? It means they're focusing on who they're going to become, and they're diminished when it comes to who they are. Okay? So if you have low self-esteem or you don't have clear vision of your own capacity to do things or your own value in the world, what happens often is you spike when it comes to not role direction, but self-direction. You spike. You have an exaggerated attention towards your future because you're unhappy with yourself in the present. And so I get this all the time. When I see low scores, negative scores in the self scores, I expect higher scores in the future scores. Because in their mind, they're thinking, well, right now I'm not really great, but wait, give me 2 years and I'll get there.
or their role awareness. Right now, I'm not doing, what I want to do, but you give me a couple years and I'll get there. So what happens is all their energy jumps into future direction. But here, you got to know something here. You can't skip your present and try to get to the future, because the future is nothing but an extension of your present. If you are never present, then you're not here, so you can't go there. Daniel Goldsmith writes this book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that's what this is all about. If you are clueless about here, you're never going to be there. It's important that you focus on who you are now and learn to embrace that person. Okay? You got to embrace who you are right now and not think about who you're going to become. Your value is set at birth. Your value as a human being doesn't go up and down based upon your level of education. Your value as a human being, it doesn't go up and down based upon your career. Your value as a human being doesn't go up and down based upon who your partner is, or how many children you have, or any of these things. Your value is always the same. It's always valuable. So you can't change that. So you gotta, that's the one thing you've really got to get a hold of, because low intrinsic personal value is a killer. It really is a showstopper for making headway in the world. Okay. Am I a vagabond and a wanderer? Well, what does that mean? Well, when you don't know where you're going, you're a wanderer. Okay? You're a wanderer. Is this make me a bad person? No. It just means you're not going to get anywhere. Okay? It doesn't make you bad. This is not about that. Okay? You got to come to grips with the fact that you're a wanderer if you're wandering around. And then what does that mean? It means you can talk with somebody and help them help you define your future. If you don't know what it is, you can get some assistance. And sometimes, your brain just isn't calling anything up. Nothing's coming in to become conscious witness so that you can see it for what it is and take hold of it. Sometimes we need help in this area. But don't stay a vagabond and a wanderer and plan on, being successful. Because you can't. You can't wander around in circles and reach your full potential. Because you're not going further ahead, you're just going around and around and around. Sometimes we call that going around the mountain. And this happens to a lot of people. And so this helps you define what you're doing, where you are, what it means. Am I determined or disgruntled towards my future target? So if I have a positive attention towards what I know my goals and vision is, then I'm going to be determined to get there. I'm going to have this pit bull, not give up, sink or swim, do or die approach to reaching my target. But if I have negative attention towards what I know to do, then I am not going to do that. Okay? I'm going to feel disgruntled. I'm going to feel like there's things in my way. And I'm not going to be able to reach that full potential. So the question is, are you circling the airport or are you landing the plane? Okay? Some people, they just circle the airport. They don't know which runway to land on. So they just circle, and the whole time they're circling, they're looking at the gas gauge, because you can only do that for so long until you run out of gas. And so, oftentimes, if we are unclear on where we're going, or even if we're clear on where we're going, we're cautious about our future, we're pulling back, and we're delaying important decisions until we know where we should actually go. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It happens, right? We're delaying decisions. Gee, I could go this direction or I could go in that direction. I'm not sure which direction to go in. Well, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So what do we do when that happens? We delay important decisions until we figure it out. Or we just keep going. Some people do that. They just keep running headlong in the wrong direction. What happens if you don't know what your target is? That's a really good question. So that means you don't have clarity on the target. And so what has to happen is you need to work through it. You need to walk through it. You need outside help when we don't know what the target is. There was a time when I wasn't sure what the target is. So what did I do? I did something until I figured it out. Oftentimes, we've got something going on that's paying the bills. It may even pay really well. I may be good at it, but I don't like it, right? I used to be an excellent painter, but, it got to the point where I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it anymore, right? But what did I want to do? I didn't know, right? I didn't know, so what did I do? I made sure I was always in a position to hear the knock at the door if it should happen. I always made sure I was in a position and looking for opportunities around me, and I knew one would show up. And it's crazy how this happened. While I was in that space, should I build my business more? Should I take on a partner? I was going through this with my business, my other business. And I didn't know, what I wanted to do. So I was talking to my wife and I said, I think I might get a partner. So I'm going to talk to this guy who's a lot younger than me. He's got a lot of energy. He's good. This, that, and the other. And so forth and so on. And my wife was like, oh no, like she could see the handwriting on the wall for this because she kind of knew me, but I didn't see the handwriting on the wall. I'm the type of person that I'll just try stuff. I'll just switch direction, see if this works, see if that works. If it doesn't, I'll do something else, right? And so, at 38, 39 years of age, with 3 children and a wife in a big house, that's probably not the smartest way to do things. But that's sort of, the way my brain functions. So my wife knew this. So what did she do? She called her brother up. She said, you got to help Stephen. I think he's about to make a big mistake, and I'm not going to be able to talk to him about it because his mind is set. So I get a call from my wife's brother, and he goes, hey man, I want to do something for you. And I'm like, what's that? And you know what it was? It was to take a personality analysis. He goes, I think you really like it. So I did that. I took it, and then I got on the phone with the individual that, was administering the instrument and talked with him for an hour or so. And during that process, I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. I mean, that's exactly what came over me. Oh my God, I want to do this. It actually awakened something in me that I've been doing for years, but not as a business. And so I said to him on the phone, I want to do this. I want to do this. So is there a way I can do this? And he's like, well, yes. I've apprenticed 1 to 2 people a year. This is how much it costs, and I have an opening. And I was like, huh? How much? Right? It was expensive. And, it was like $15,000 for him to train me for 4 months. I was like, oh crap. And here's what I said. My wife's not going to go for that. And he says, oh yes, she will. I said, how do you know? You don't have her personality type. He goes, I don't need it. I got yours. So he knew what hers was because of what mine was. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no way. He says, dude, she's going to do it. She's going to love it. So you go home. So as this is happening, I'm thinking in my head, he's just saying that because he wants $15,000. That's what I'm thinking, right? I'm going to get duped again because I fall into this stuff. I'm the one buying rainbow vacuum cleaners from the guy that comes to the door. Anyway, I go home and call my brother-in-law and said, is this guy legit? Is this guy for real? He goes, oh yeah, man, I've been working with him for years. He's the real deal. I said, okay. So I said to my wife, I'd like to really do this. Here's what happened. Here's what it was like. Here's what it costs. said, and here's what she said. She said, I don't care what it costs. This is you. And I was like, oh my God. So this was a Friday. This is you. Saturday, I went right down to the bank and took out an equity line of credit. And Monday, I paid that guy and started my training that week. Within 4 months, I was done with my training. This is like 2004 or 5. I got done with my training within 4 months. So that was May, June, July, August. So I got done with my training around August. My first job I made $8,000 in 4 hours. My first job. And then, within about 24 months, I was bringing in about $20,000 a month. And then in 2007, things started ramping up 1 year after that. So 36 months, I got a consulting job and I made $87,000 for 40 hours of work. So you might ask, what happened? I was in my sweet spot. This was me. This is what I do. And I'm really good at it. And when I found that and embraced it, it was so great. But it took me 40 years to find it. So that's why when I talk to people, they love my story, and I say, it took me 40 years to become an overnight success. Because that's kind of what happened. Well, since then, I've written like 7 books, travel the world, speak all over the place, and help people understand who they are, how they are, why they are, and what they can do. And so it's such a, hey, Luke, good to see you, buddy. It's such a great story, and it's inspiring, because you got to remember something. I failed math. I almost didn't graduate high school. I have attention deficit disorder. I'm blind in one eye. I broke my nose 4 times. Okay. I got a crooked mouth. My teeth look like horse teeth, right? I could go on and on and on and talk about all these things that I would call flaws in my life, but it doesn't matter about any of it, because my assets are kick assets. They're kick ass. Right? So it doesn't matter. So what do? I embrace all those weaknesses and all those flaws, and I capitalize on all my strengths. And it just works. And it can work for anyone. And so how do you find your target? Yeah, show up and do something. Absolutely. My good friend Michael Gebbin calls it this. He says, MIA, massive imperfect action. And so I did all that. When I was in college, what was I doing? You know what I try to do for a living? Pull people's weeds. I was pulling weeds for people. And the first time I get out there, I get this great job pulling weeds. It's like $20 an hour in 1985. Okay? I mean, it was a really big deal. I'm pulling weeds all day long. And the woman was like in her 60s or 70s. And she comes home and I'm covered with dirt. I'm covered with sweat. And I walk over and I'm wiping my brow, and I know I'm going to get paid, and I can't wait for that. And I'm looking at her and I say, hey, how you doing? She's like, good. Let's see your progress. I said, oh, I've already finished it. She goes, really? And I said, absolutely. She comes out to the back, and we're looking over her entire backyard, the pool and the garden and all the trees. And you know what I had done? I pulled up all her annuals. I pulled up all the tulips and everything that comes around and comes up every single year that took her 20 years to get right. I pulled them all out. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm laughing. She stood there and cried. And none, needless to say, I didn't get paid. Oh my God, I'm trying to put him back, and she's like, no, just leave him alone. Just leave him alone. And I left in utter defeat, like,
How can you suck at pulling up weeds? Oh my God, it was so bad. I mean, I was off to a rough start, right? Well, look at me now, okay? Persistence. I could have just gone in my closet and hanged myself after that one. Yeah, I tried my hand at pulling weeds and failed. So anyway, oh my God, unbelievable. So maybe that gives you hope. I don't know. All right, where are we? It doesn't look like we're going to finish. Okay, so what can happen when you have goal frustration? So soul frustration, I'm not happy with who I am. Role frustration, I'm not feeling it, I'm not happy with what I do. And goal frustration, I cannot see my future. I just know I want to help people, but I don't know what to do, right? I don't know what classes to take. I'm confused. I feel like I'm traveling in circles. After all this time, I'm back at square one. How many times have we said that? Okay? This is goal frustration. It happens. What do we do when this happens? Well, first thing you can do is relax and realize you're among, great people, great icons like myself. All right? It happens. So, we just got to take our time. We got to relax. And you can't allow the pressures of the world around you to put you in a position of immobility. Yeah, this is so me right now. That's right. You can't allow life to kind of put you in there, because if you're finding your worth in what you do and you don't like what you're doing, you know what happens? You become worthless. You have to be centered in who you are. You got to find your worth in who you are, right? Find your worth in who you are, and then you can either pull weeds or paint houses or speak to people around the world. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because you're a great person doing it. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters who you are. And when you're really happy with who you are, it doesn't matter what you do. And when you're with somebody who's happy with who you are, it really doesn't matter what you do. Because what we do changes. Because we change. Our minds change. Our tastes change. Our brains mature. Our ability changes. A lot of things change. And you got to be patient with yourself. And if you're like a get up and go person and you're antsy, then you're going to feel frustration. So you have to stop the train, get off, and take inventory. And a lot of times it's good to take an inventory analysis like the one we're doing here to kind of find out where these are, where you're at, what this looks like. Be okay with where you're at. Walk through it with someone, okay? Listen, it's not the end of the world because we don't know what to do next. It's not the end of the world. And so you have to put it in its place and not make it, some kind of an idol that becomes hyper important that you follow. How did I do that? All right, let's go back here. That was from the last video. Okay, I'm going to skip that. It's a little complex. Where are we? Okay. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Well, so we're gonna end here. And so I had some extra slides there that I was placing other places and I hadn't deleted them yet, which I'm actually going to do right now so that I don't forget it. Yeah, I'll leave you with this. Synaptic pruning. Changing the way we think over time by pruning our synapses. Okay?
changing the way we think over time by pruning our synapses. And that means changing the conversation. Rather than saying to yourself, I don't know what to do, say to yourself, wow, I wonder what opportunities are before me, right? So start doing that. You know what I would do? Let me tell you what I would do. When I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do, I would go on Google and type in the words like counseling, coaching, helping people. And I would get, thousands of pages, can come up about those things, and just look at them. And that's how you get ideas, right? I would get ideas, and I would look for programs that offer some kind of a certificate or something like that I could get in short order for reasonably short money and hone my skills in an area, because university was out of the question. Out of the question. I mean, I really, really struggle when it comes to taking tests. I get test anxiety so bad that I freeze. It's just so bad. I'll go on some of these schools online like Yale University and take an online course. A lot of times they offer online courses for free. And I'll take the course, I'll read the material, and I'm going through it. Come time to take a test, F, bomb it, boom, just like that. Thinking, I'm glad this is fake university, because I'd be sent home packing. So some people aren't really fully wired for that kind of thing. That's okay. College isn't for everybody. And so it's good to know where you are and be comfortable with it. So let's go back and recap real quick, so we can go forward. Axiology 101, mind, worlds, dimensions, one mind, two worlds, three dimensions. Our psychic energy for doing anything in the world comes out of our mind and out of our four primary emotions, whether they're in play or out of play, which can give us 8. Two worlds, the outer world, everything around us, the inner world, everything within us. And then the three dimensions, relating, doing, and thinking. The people piece, the intrinsic piece is feeling, thinking. We use the thinking we use to connect and to bond with people. Doing is the thinking we use to pay attention to what needs to be done. And then the thinking piece is the thinking we use when we focus on rules, order, meeting plans, etc. Goals, ideas, standards, the future, and those are the things that we've covered in this series. And then intrinsic objects in time, so things that have value in and of themselves, which are people. Extrinsic objects in time, tangible things that are a means to an end, such as a process or an action. Remember, these are now oriented, not infinity. And then systemic objects in time, conceptual constructs in our minds about what should be. Here's where I should be in the future, or here's the way this should go right now, or this red light should be a yellow light this time of night. These kinds of things. So that's really, what axiology is all about. And then finally, attention, balance, and clarity. Attention, where do we look? What are we paying attention to? Balance, do we see what's positive or what's missing, what's negative? Do we see both sides? Where's our focus? And then clarity, how much do we see? How big is our area of vision? Is it wide? Is it a big open aperture? Or is it much more narrow and focused and creative? So we can't see all of it, we're just seeing some of it. So I hope this little mini-series on axiology has been helpful. This is the third video, so there's at least, there's about 3 hours of video here. You can go back and watch it over and over again. That's the great thing about YouTube. It's awesome. So these all go in my YouTube channel, youtube.com//Steven Sisler. I just started this YouTube channel not long ago, starting to build videos in there, and hopefully in the next couple of years we'll have a ton of them in there, and they can help you if you're interested. Well, thanks for showing up. I've got more work to do today with clients, so I just had a break in time. I wanted to do this to get this out of the way for the weekend. And thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.